Commander Violet Sornax stepped off her shuttle and looked at the space station called Threshold Prime with complete disgust in her four violet eyes. For she had never wanted to visit a place that housed so many humans. The Valorian hegemony had ruled over 300 star systems for more than 50,000 years. And Violet believed her species was the greatest in all the galaxy. So why did the Council force her to inspect a station filled with those terrible creatures from Earth? She walked down the corridor with her two guards following close behind her, and every alien she passed bowed their head in respect, for everyone knew the power of the Valorian hegemony. However, the humans she encountered simply nodded or smiled at her, and this made her blood boil with anger. These Deathworlders have no understanding of proper respect, she hissed to her guards, using the common galactic language so the humans could hear her insult her senior guard. A tall male named Kethver nodded in agreement and replied, "They come from a Category 12 Deathworld, Commander. So what can we expect from animals who evolved on a planet that actively tries to kill everything living on it?" Violet made a sound of disgust and continued walking through the station, noting every small problem she could find so she could write a terrible report about this place. She hated that the Galactic Council had allowed humans to join their organization only 30 years ago. And she hated even more that these primitive creatures had somehow become important members of galactic society. The humans confused her if she was being honest with herself. They were soft and weak compared to most species, with no natural armor or claws or venom. Yet they had conquered their deadly planet and spread across the stars faster than any species in recorded history. Some council members whispered that humans were dangerous, but Violet refused to believe that such small and fragile creatures could threaten anyone. She entered the main diplomatic wing of the station where Ambassador Marcus Chun worked, and she immediately noticed how clean and organized everything was. The humans took great pride in their work, she had to admit. But that did not change her opinion of them as inferior beings. Ambassador Chun greeted her with a warm smile and extended his hand in that strange human greeting ritual, saying, "Commander Sornax, welcome to Threshold Prime. We are honored by your visit and hope you find everything in order." Violet ignored his hand and looked down at him with cold eyes, responding, "I am here for an official inspection. Ambassador, not to exchange pleasantries with your kind. Please have your staff prepare all documentation for my review immediately." The ambassador's smile did not falter, even slightly, and he simply nodded and said, "Of course, Commander. My staff will assist you with whatever you need." This reaction bothered Violet more than she wanted to admit. When she insulted other species, they usually showed fear or anger, but the humans always remained calm and polite. It was unnatural. She spent the next 3 hours going through the station, checking systems and questioning staff members, and she found nothing seriously wrong, which frustrated her greatly. She had wanted to find major problems so she could recommend that humans be removed from this station. As she walked through a residential corridor on her way back to the shuttle bay, Violet noticed a small human running toward her. It was a child, a little girl with black hair and bright eyes, and she was chasing a small ball that bounced along the floor. The child could not have been more than 7 Earth years old, and she was laughing with pure joy as she ran after her toy. Violet stopped walking and watched with disgust as this tiny human came closer and closer. "Child, stop running this instant," Violet commanded in her most authoritative voice. But the little girl did not hear her or did not understand. Because she kept chasing her ball, the ball bounced right past Violet's feet, and the child followed it without looking where she was going. She bumped directly into the commander's leg and fell backward onto the floor with a small cry of surprise. Violet felt the impact, and even though it was barely noticeable, the idea that this dirty little Deathworlder had touched her filled her with rage. How dare this creature make contact with a Valorian commander? You disgusting animal, Violet snarled, raising her ceremonial staff high above her head. The staff was made of dense metal and was designed to discipline members of lesser species who showed disrespect. On most aliens, it would cause pain, but no serious injury. Violet had used it many times before, without any problems. She brought the staff down hard on the child's left arm, expecting the girl to cry and run away. What happened instead shocked everyone in the corridor. The sound of breaking bone echoed off the walls, and the little girl screamed in a way that made even Violet take a step backward. The child's arm bent at an unnatural angle, and something white poked through her skin as blood began to pour onto the floor. Violet stared in horror at what she had done. She had not expected the child to be so fragile. On any other species, that strike would have caused nothing more than a bruise. The blood was bright red and spread quickly across the clean floor. Violet had never seen blood that color before, and the iron smell of it filled the air. She felt sick to her stomach. A woman ran forward, screaming the child's name. Lily, Lily, oh my God, Lily, and she gathered the crying girl into her arms. This was Sarah Chun, the ambassador's wife, and her face was twisted with terror and grief. Within seconds, more humans appeared in the corridor. They came from every direction, drawn by the child's screams. They saw the blood. They saw the broken bones sticking through skin. And they saw Violet standing there with her staff still in her hand, and then something strange happened. The humans went completely silent. Every single one of them stopped moving and stopped speaking. They stood perfectly still and stared at Violet with expressions she could not read. There was no screaming, no crying, no shouting. Just absolute silence. Ambassador Marcus Chun pushed through the crowd and saw his daughter lying in his wife's arms. His eyes moved from the child to the blood to the bone to Violet's staff. His face showed no emotion at all, and his body became very still. Medical team to Corridor 7 immediately, he said in a calm voice that somehow carried through the entire section. My daughter needs emergency surgery. He knelt beside his wife and daughter and gently touched Lily's face while she sobbed in pain. His hands were steady and his breathing was slow. He looked up at Violet with eyes that held something cold and patient. Commander Sornax, he said quietly, I suggest you do not leave this station. Violet laughed nervously and replied, Are you threatening me, Ambassador? Do you know who I am? The Valorian hegemony will not tolerate such disrespect from a primitive species like yours. The ambassador did not respond. He simply picked up his injured daughter with incredible gentleness and carried her toward the medical bay. The crowd of humans parted for him in perfect silence, and then they all turned back to look at Violet. She noticed something that made her skin crawl. Every human in the corridor was smiling. It was not a happy smile or a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just found its prey. Her guard Tethfer leaned close and whispered, Commander, we should leave immediately. Something is very wrong here. Violet wanted to agree, but her pride would not let her show fear in front of these creatures. She straightened her uniform and said loudly, Clean up this mess. I will be filing my report from my shuttle. As she walked away, she heard no footsteps following her. The humans remained exactly where they were, watching her leave. She could feel their eyes on her back, and for the first time in her long career, Commander Violet Sornax felt something she had not felt in centuries. She felt afraid. Ambassador Marcus Chen sat in the waiting room outside the surgical bay with his wife Sarah beside him, and neither of them had spoken a single word since they arrived. Their hands were clasped together tightly, and their eyes stared at the door that separated them from their daughter. The doctors had told them that Lily would survive. The break was bad, but human medical technology had advanced far beyond simple bone repair. She would need surgery, regenerative treatment, and several weeks of recovery. But she would be fine. Knowing this did not make the waiting any easier, Sarah finally broke the silence and whispered, "Marcus, what are we going to do? That alien broke our daughter's arm." "She broke our baby's arm." Marcus turned to look at his wife, and his face was completely calm as he replied, "We are going to wait here until Lily is out of surgery. Then we are going to hold her and tell her everything is okay. And then I am going to make some calls." His voice was soft and steady, but Sarah had been married to him for 15 years, and she knew what that tone meant. She had seen it once before. During the border crisis on Mars Colony, when terrorists had threatened their family, she squeezed his hand and said, "Make them pay, Marcus. Make them all pay." He nodded slowly and replied, "I will." Throughout the station, word of what happened spread faster than anyone expected. Humans told other humans, who told more humans, until every single person from Earth knew exactly what Commander Violet had done. The strange thing was how quietly the information moved. There was no shouting in corridors, no angry crowds gathering, no threats being made. Humans simply talked to each other in low voices, exchanged knowing looks, and went back to their duties. But something had changed in the way they worked. Lieutenant Commander James Wright was on duty in the engineering section when he heard about the incident, and he immediately walked to his console and began running system diagnostics. His alien co-worker, a Tellurian named Burkith, watched him with confusion. "Is something wrong with the systems?" Burkith asked. James smiled at him and replied, "Just doing some routine checks. Nothing to worry about." What James did not mention was that he was quietly checking every system that Violet's shuttle would need to function. Navigation, communications, life support, engine controls. All of them could be accessed from his station if necessary across the station. Similar scenes played out. Humans in communications checked their equipment. Humans in security reviewed their protocols. Humans in the shuttle bay found reasons to work near Violet's ship. None of them did anything wrong or illegal, but all of them were preparing. The alien residents of Threshold Prime began to notice that something strange was happening. The humans were being extra polite, extra helpful, and extra friendly. They smiled more than usual and spoke in softer voices. They offered to help with tasks and went out of their way to be kind. This terrified every alien who understood what it meant. Sixthara, a Calorian merchant who had lived among humans for 10 years, saw the change immediately and rushed to warn her fellow aliens in the trade district. She gathered them together in her shop and spoke quickly. "Listen to me carefully," she said with fear in her many eyes. "The humans are hunting. I have seen this behavior before. When humans become this calm and this polite, it means they have chosen their prey and are preparing to strike." A young Valorian trader named Korath laughed and replied, "You cannot be serious. Humans are weak creatures. What could they possibly do to a commander of the hegemony?" Zixthara grabbed him by his uniform and pulled him close, saying, "Humans wiped out the Krethax invasion fleet in 6 months. The Krethax had 5,000 warships. The humans had 300. Do you understand what that means?" Korath's face went pale as he remembered the stories. The Krethax had been one of the most feared species in the galaxy, known for their brutality and their massive military. They had attacked human colonies, expecting an easy victory. The war lasted exactly 182 days. By the end, there were no Krethax left. "What should we do?" Korath whispered. Itcha released him and replied, "Stay out of their way. Do nothing to interfere. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that they never have a reason to hunt you." In her quarters, Commander Violet was trying to contact her shuttle pilot to prepare for departure, but her communications kept having strange problems. Every time she tried to send a message, there was interference or delays or technical issues. "What is wrong with this primitive station?" she shouted at her guards. "Why can I not reach my own ship?" Kethver checked his own communication device and found that it was working perfectly. He could contact the shuttle without any problems. But when he tried to pass the device to Violet, it suddenly stopped functioning. "This is very strange, Commander," he said nervously. "Perhaps we should speak to station security about the issue." A soft knock came at the door, and when Kethver opened it, he found Captain David Okonkwo standing there with a pleasant smile on his dark face. The human was the commanding officer of Threshold Prime, and he had a reputation for being fair and professional, Commander Sornax. He said warmly, "I hope I am not disturbing you. I wanted to personally apologize for the incident in Corridor 7. Our maintenance crews are still cleaning the area." Violet straightened her uniform and replied coldly, "The only incident was a Deathworlder child running into me without permission. I simply taught it a lesson about respecting superior species." Okonkwo's smile did not change even slightly as he nodded and said, "Of course, Commander. I understand completely. However, I am afraid there has been a complication with your departure." Violet's eyes narrowed as she asked, "What kind of complication?" "The Galactic Council has been informed of today's events," Okonkwo explained calmly. "They are sending an emergency tribunal to investigate. Until the tribunal arrives, I am afraid no one involved in the incident may leave the station." Violet felt rage building inside her as she shouted, "This is outrageous. The Council has no authority over a Valorian commander. I demand to leave immediately." Okonkwo remained perfectly calm and replied, "I understand your frustration, Commander. Unfortunately, there is another matter that complicates things further. Earth has invoked the Terran Accords." The name meant nothing to Violet, and she asked, "What are the Terran Accords?" "A treaty signed by all Council species 30 years ago when humanity joined the galactic community," Okonkwo explained. Most species did not read the full document before signing. They assumed it was just a standard agreement. He paused for a moment before continuing. "Article 7 of the Terran Accords states that any act of violence against a human child, committed by a foreign national in neutral or Terran-allied space, shall be judged not by the aggressor's laws, but by human laws." Violet stared at him in disbelief and replied, "That cannot be legal. The Council would never agree to such terms." Okonkwo's smile finally faded, and his dark eyes became very serious as he said, "They did agree, Commander. Every species signed the accords without reading them because they were too eager to access human technology and trade goods. Now those signatures are binding under galactic law." He turned to leave, but stopped at the door and added, "I suggest you contact your government, Commander. You are going to need very good lawyers." After he left, Violet stood in silence for a long moment before Kethver spoke quietly. "Commander, I think we may have made a serious mistake." For the first time in her life, Violet had no response. She simply stared at the door and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so quickly somewhere in the station. Little Lily Chun was coming out of surgery. Her arm was repaired and wrapped in a regenerative cast. She was sleeping peacefully while her parents watched over her and around them. The humans of Threshold Prime continued their quiet preparations. They sent messages to Earth. They contacted human ships in nearby systems. They gathered information and made plans. The hunt had begun, and the prey did not even know it yet. 3 standard galactic cycles passed before the emergency tribunal arrived at Threshold Prime, and during that time, Commander Violet had become increasingly desperate. She had tried everything to escape the station, but every attempt failed. Her shuttle developed mysterious mechanical problems. The repair crews were always busy with other tasks. Communication with her fleet was constantly interrupted by solar interference that affected only her channels. It was as if the entire universe was working against her. The Valorian hegemony sent an official delegation to support her, led by High Admiral Dex Veros himself. He arrived with 3 warships and a team of the best lawyers the Empire could provide. Surely, Violet thought, this nightmare would finally end when the tribunal convened in the station's Grand Council chamber. Representatives from 12 different species filled the observation galleries. This was the most important legal case in decades, and everyone wanted to witness it. The chamber was massive, designed to hold hundreds of beings from all across the galaxy. Holographic displays showed the proceedings to billions of viewers on thousands of worlds. This trial would shape the future of galactic politics. Violet sat at the defense table with her lawyers, feeling confident for the first time since the incident. The Valorian hegemony was ancient and powerful. The Council would never dare rule against them over something as small as a Deathworlder child. Then the human delegation entered the chamber, and Violet's confidence disappeared instantly. They were not diplomats. They were soldiers. 47 men and women marched into the chamber in perfect formation, their military dress uniforms covered with medals and ribbons. They moved with the kind of precision that only came from years of combat experience. Their faces showed no emotion until Violet recognized some of them from intelligence reports. There was General Yuki Tanaka, who had led the ground assault on the Krethak's homeworld. There was Admiral Robert Stone, whose fleet had destroyed 200 enemy ships in a single battle. There was Colonel Maria Santos, famous for holding a colony against overwhelming forces for 3 months. These were the heroes of humanity, the warriors who had made their species feared across the galaxy. Why were they here for a simple assault case? Admiral Dexvaros leaned close to Violet and whispered, "Do not worry, Commander. This is just intimidation. They cannot do anything to us legally." Ambassador Marcus Chun entered last, walking slowly to the podium at the center of the chamber. He was dressed in a simple dark suit, and he carried a small data tablet in his hands. His face was calm and his movements were controlled. "Members of the tribunal," he began, his voice clear and steady. "We are here today because 3 cycles ago, Commander Violet Sornax of the Valorian hegemony struck a 7-year-old human child with a weapon designed to cause pain and injury." He touched his tablet, and a holographic image appeared above the chamber. It was Lily, sleeping in her hospital bed, her arm wrapped in a regenerative cast. "This is my daughter, Lily Chun. She is kind and curious and loves to play. 3 cycles ago, she was chasing a ball through a corridor when she accidentally bumped into Commander Sornax." Another image appeared. This one was from the security cameras. It showed Violet raising her staff and bringing it down on Lily's arm. The sound of the impact and the child's scream echoed through the chamber. Several aliens in the observation gallery looked away. The image was disturbing, even to species who had seen war. Commander Sornax claims this was a minor disciplinary action. Chum continued. She claims that on most species, such a strike would cause minimal harm. Perhaps that is true. He touched his tablet again, and medical images appeared. X-rays showing shattered bone. Photographs showing skin torn open. Charts showing blood loss and trauma measurements. Humans are not most species. We evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill us. Our bones are dense enough to support our bodies in high gravity, but they are also brittle when struck with sufficient force. Our skin tears easily. Our blood contains iron, which makes it flow quickly when we are wounded. He looked directly at Violet for the first time, and his eyes held no anger, only cold determination. Commander Sornax did not know these things because she did not bother to learn them. She assumed humans were weak and fragile, so she struck my daughter without any thought for the consequences. The Valorian defense lawyer rose and said loudly, "This is all very emotional, but what exactly are the charges?" The commander disciplined a child who showed disrespect. "This is perfectly legal under Valorian law." Chun nodded and replied calmly, "Under Valorian law, perhaps." But we are not in Valorian space, and this incident did not happen on a Valorian station. We are in neutral territory, which means the Terran Accords apply. He turned to the tribunal judges and continued. 30 years ago, every species in this chamber signed the Terran Accords. Article 7 of those accords states clearly that any violence against a human child in neutral or eyed space shall be judged by human law. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Valorian delegation shouted protests. Other species demanded explanations. The judges called for order, but were ignored. Admiral Dex Varus stood and roared over the noise. This is a trap. Humanity tricked us into signing those accords. We demand they be declared invalid. General Tanaka stepped forward, and somehow her voice cut through all the shouting without seeming loud at all. You signed a treaty without reading it. That is your mistake, not ours. The accords are legal and binding. If you want to challenge them, you can do so through proper council procedures, but that process takes years. Commander Sornax will be judged today. Nexvaros glared at her and replied, The Valorian hegemony does not recognize this tribunal's authority. We will take the commander and leave, and if anyone tries to stop us, there will be consequences. The human soldiers in the chamber did not move. They did not reach for weapons or change their expressions. They simply watched the admiral with patient eyes. Ambassador Chun spoke again, his voice still calm. Admiral, I understand your frustration. You believe your empire is powerful enough to protect Commander Sornax from justice. Perhaps you are right. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the watching species. But consider this carefully before you act. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. In that time, we have ended 2 wars that other species could not win. We have developed technology that rivals anything the ancient empires possess. We have spread across more systems than any species in history. He let his words sink in before continuing. You think we are young and inexperienced. You think we do not understand how galactic politics work. But we have been watching and learning from all of you since the day we joined the council. We know your tactics. We know your weaknesses. We know exactly what you are capable of, General Tanaka added softly. And you have no idea what we are capable of. The chamber fell silent. Even the other alien species stopped their side conversations to listen. Chun concluded his opening statement with words that would be remembered for centuries. We did not come to the stars seeking conflict. We came to explore and learn and grow. But we have one rule that we will never break, one line that no one may cross. He looked at Violith with eyes that held the weight of an entire species behind them. You heard our child. Now you will answer for it. The tribunal judges called for a brief recess, and as Violith was led out of the chamber, she noticed that every human in the room was watching her. They were still smiling those strange, patient smiles. For the first time, she truly understood what it meant to be hunted by a Deathworlder. The tribunal recess was supposed to last 1 standard hour, but after only 15 minutes, alarms began ringing throughout Threshold Prime. Emergency lights flashed in every corridor, and security teams rushed toward the shuttle bay. Commander Violith had decided to run and waited until her guards were escorted to separate holding rooms. Then she used an emergency override code to escape through a maintenance tunnel. The code was supposed to be known only to high-ranking Valorian officers, but somehow it still worked in the alien station. Her personal shuttle was waiting in the bay, and she ran toward it with desperate speed. Her legs burned and her lungs ached, but she did not stop. If she could just reach her ship, she could escape to Valorian space where no human laws could touch her. She burst into the shuttle bay and saw her ship sitting exactly where she had left it. The pilot was already in the cockpit, powering up the engines. In just a few minutes, she would be free. Violet scrambled up the boarding ramp and screamed at the pilot, "Get us out of here now. Do not wait for clearance. Just go." The pilot obeyed without question, and the shuttle lifted off the deck. It shot through the station's force field and into open space. Behind them, Threshold Prime grew smaller, and Smaller laughed with relief and said, "Those stupid Deathworlders thought they could trap me. They have no idea who they were dealing with." The pilot turned to look at her with a nervous expression and replied, "Commander, I am detecting a ship on an intercept course. It is human." Violet waved her hand dismissively and replied, "One human ship is no threat. Our shields can handle anything they have. Just keep flying toward the border." The ship appeared on their sensors moments later. It was the TSS Perseverance, a human destroyer that had been conducting routine patrols in the sector. Except now, it was directly in their path. And it was not moving. A communication request came through, and before Violet could refuse it, the human captain's voice filled the cockpit. "Commander Sornax, this is Captain Amara Diallo of the Terran spaceship Perseverance. You are charged with aggravated assault on a Meyer under Terran law and fleeing from lawful custody. You will surrender your vessel and submit to arrest immediately." Violet grabbed the communication controls and shouted back, "I am a commander of the Valorian hegemony. You have no authority over me. Stand aside or face the consequences." Captain Diallo's response was calm and measured. "You have 60 seconds to comply with this order. If you do not surrender, your vessel will be disabled and boarded. This is your only warning." Violet laughed and told her pilot, "Ignore this fool. Our shields will protect us. Continue toward the border at maximum speed." The pilot looked uncertain but obeyed. The shuttle's engines roared as they pushed toward their maximum output. The Perseverance grew larger on their view screen as they approached, but it still did not move. 40 seconds passed, then 50. Violet began to believe she would actually escape. Then the Perseverance fired. It was a single shot, impossibly precise, that struck the shuttle's navigation array. The explosion rocked the small ship, and warning lights covered every console. Before Violet could react, a second shot hit their engines, reducing their thrust to almost nothing. A third shot struck their life support systems. Alarms screamed that they had only 3 hours of breathable air remaining. "Impossible," Violet whispered. "Those shots should not have penetrated our shields." Captain Diallo's voice came through the communication system again. 52 seconds remaining, Commander. I recommend you surrender now. The next shots will not be so gentle." Violet stared at the view screen in shock. The Perseverance had not targeted their shields at all. Every shot had been aimed at specific systems with surgical precision. The humans had known exactly where to hit them to disable the shuttle without destroying it. How did they do that? She asked her pilot. How did they know where our weak points were? The pilot checked his console and replied with a shaking voice. "Commander, according to our sensors, they have detailed scans of every Valorian ship design in their database. They know our technology better than we do." Violet finally understood. The humans had been studying the Valorian hegemony for 30 years. They had learned everything about their ships, their weapons, their tactics. They had prepared for exactly this situation. She surrendered back on Threshold Prime. Admiral Dex Varos received word of Violet's capture and flew into a rage. He stormed into the command center where Captain Okonkwo was calmly monitoring the situation. "This is an act of war." Dex roared. "You have attacked a Valorian vessel and captured a Valorian officer. The hegemony will destroy your pitiful species for this insult." Okonkwo did not look up from his console as he replied. Commander Sornax fled from lawful custody. Captain Diallo was fully within her rights to pursue and detain her. No act of war has occurred. Vexfaros slammed his fist on a nearby console and shouted, "I have 3 warships in this system. I could glass this station in minutes." A new voice spoke from behind him, soft and calm and somehow more dangerous than any shout. "You could try, Deathworlders spun around and found himself face to face with General Elena Vasquez, Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Coalition. She had arrived on the station sometime during the chaos. Accompanied by a dozen officers from every human fleet in the sector, Vasquez was a small woman, barely reaching the Admiral's chest, but something in her eyes made him take a step backward. She looked at him the way a predator looks at prey that has made a fatal mistake. "Admiral Deathworlders," she said quietly, "I have been waiting for this moment for 15 years. Ever since the hegemony tried to claim human colony worlds as their territory. Ever since your people called us animals and treated us like lesser beings." She took a step closer, and the Admiral found himself backing away again. "Your 3 warships are impressive. Truly, they are. But perhaps you should check your sensors before making any threats." Deathworlders pulled out his communicator and contacted his flagship. The response he received made his face go pale. "Admiral," his captain reported nervously, 27 human vessels have just dropped out of hyperspace around the station. They include 4 battleships, 12 destroyers, and 11 support craft. They have us completely surrounded." Vasquez smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "We have been studying your tactics for 30 years, Admiral. We know every weakness in your fleet doctrine, every blind spot in your sensor networks, every colony with poor defenses." She paused to let her words sink in. "Did you know that humans evolved as persistence predators? We do not have claws or armor or venom. Instead, we chase our prey across vast distances until it collapses from exhaustion. We are patient. We are relentless. We never stop." Deathworlders found his voice and tried to speak with authority. "The hegemony will not be intimidated by threats." Vasquez shook her head and replied, "This is not a threat, Admiral. This is a lesson. You thought humans were weak because we do not look dangerous. You thought we were stupid because we are young. You thought we were easy to control because we are polite." Her smile faded, and her eyes became cold. Commander Sornax broke a child's arm because she believed there would be no consequences. She was wrong. You brought 3 warships because you believed you could intimidate us. You were wrong, too. She turned away from him and walked toward the exit, but stopped at the door to deliver one final message. The tribunal will continue. Commander Sornax will face justice. And if anyone else tries to interfere, they will learn the same lesson she's learning right now. She looked back at him over her shoulder. "We are not the prey, Admiral. We never were." Deathworlders stood alone in the command center for a long time after she left. For the first time in his military career, he had no idea what to do outside the station. 27 human warships maintained their positions around his 3 vessels. They made no aggressive moves. They sent no threatening messages. They simply waited. Somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else. The tribunal reconvened the next morning, with Commander Violith back in custody. She sat at the defense table with her head down, her confidence completely shattered. The escape attempt had failed, and now everyone in the galaxy knew that she had tried to run from justice. Admiral Deathworlders was still present, but his warships had retreated to the edge of the system. The human fleet had not fired a single shot or made a single threat. They had simply demonstrated that they were prepared for any outcome. The Valorian defense lawyers made their arguments with less enthusiasm than before. They claimed that Violith had acted according to her culture. They argued that humans should have taught their children to show proper respect. They insisted that the Terran Accords were unfair and should not apply. Ambassador Chun listened to their arguments patiently, and when they finished, he rose to deliver his response. The defense claims that Commander Sornax acted according to Valorian culture. He began. They say that striking lesser beings is acceptable in their society. Perhaps this is true? He walked slowly around the chamber, addressing not just the judges, but all the species watching. But culture is not an excuse for cruelty. Once, There were cultures on Earth that believed certain people were less valuable than others. They believed it was acceptable to hurt those people without consequences. We called those cultures barbaric, and we changed them. He stopped in front of the Valorian delegation and continued, "The galaxy is watching this trial. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds want to know what kind of civilization we are. Are we a civilization that protects the weak? Or are we a civilization that allows the powerful to harm the innocent without punishment?" The chamber was completely silent as he returned to the podium. Commander Sornax broke my daughter's arm. She shattered the bone and tore the skin. She made a 7-year-old girl scream in agony. His voice remained calm, but something in his eyes made even the judges look away. If we allow this to go unpunished, we are telling every bully in the galaxy that they can hurt children whenever they want. We are telling every child that they are not safe. We are telling the universe that justice means nothing. He shook his head slowly. I cannot accept that. Humanity cannot accept that. And I do not believe the Galactic Council accepts that either. The defense lawyer stood and made one final argument. Ambassador Chun speaks of justice, but what he really wants is revenge. He wants to punish Commander Sornax because she hurt his child. This is personal, not legal. Chun turned to face the lawyer directly and replied, "You are right that this is personal. My daughter was hurt, and I want the person who hurt her to face consequences. But revenge would be killing Commander Sornax. Revenge would be destroying her reputation and her career. Revenge would be making her suffer the way Lily suffered." He paused and took a deep breath. "We are not asking for revenge. We are asking for justice. There is a difference." The tribunal judges called for a short deliberation, and everyone waited in tense silence. The fate of galactic politics hung in the balance. If the Valorians won, it would prove that powerful empires could do whatever they wanted. If the humans won, it would change everything after 2 hours. The judges returned with their verdict. Commander Violet Sornax, the head judge, announced, "This tribunal finds you guilty of aggravated assault against a minor under the terms of the Terran Accords. Your actions caused serious physical harm to a human child, and you showed no remorse for your behavior." Violet's legs went weak, and she had to grab the table to keep from falling. The judge continued, "Under Valorian law, you would receive a minor fine and be returned to duty. Under human law, the punishment is more severe. You are sentenced to permanent exile on a monitored human rehabilitation colony." Gasps filled the chamber. A rehabilitation colony was a place where criminals were sent to learn new behaviors. Violet would spend the rest of her very long life surrounded by humans, learning why they had survived a world that should have killed them. "This is cruel," Violet screamed. "You cannot do this to me. I am a commander of the Valorian hegemony." General Vasquez stepped forward and addressed her directly. "You will not be tortured or mistreated. You will be fed and housed and given meaningful work. You will be treated with more kindness than you showed a little girl chasing her ball." She let those words sink in before continuing. "But you will live among humans. You will learn our history and our culture. You will understand why we protect our children so fiercely. And perhaps, after many years, you will become a better person." Violet was led away by human security officers. Still shouting protests that no one listened to, Admiral Dexvaros requested permission to speak, and when granted, he approached the podium with a defeated expression. "The Valorian hegemony accepts this verdict," he said quietly. "We do not like it, but we accept it. However, I must ask what this means for relations between our peoples going forward." General Vasquez answered him, and her voice was broadcast across the galaxy. "We did not come to the stars to conquer. We came to explore, to learn, to grow. We have always wanted peace and cooperation with every species we meet." She looked around the chamber at all the watching aliens. But understand this. Every species in this council has something precious that they will protect without mercy, without hesitation, without limit. For some, it is territory. For others, it is honor. For others, it is wealth. Her eyes hardened as she delivered her final message. For humans, it is our children. They are our future, our hope, our reason for everything we do. We will die to protect them. We will kill to protect them. We will go to war against any power in the galaxy to keep them safe. She paused to let her words echo through the chamber. Touch our children again, or one of our young, and see what happens. You will find that Deathworlders are far more terrifying than any nightmare you can imagine. The chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Vasquez smiled, and suddenly she looked like a kind grandmother instead of a terrifying general. Of course, we prefer peace. We prefer friendship. We prefer to work together with all species to build a better galaxy. So let us put this unpleasantness behind us and focus on the future. 1 week later, Ambassador Chun received a visitor in his office. Little Lily had been released from the medical bay, and she was drawing pictures at a small table in the corner. Her arm was still in a cast, but she was smiling and happy. The visitor was Zixthara, the Calorian merchant who had warned her fellow aliens about human behavior. She came carrying a small gift wrapped in colorful paper. I hope I am not intruding, she said nervously. I wanted to bring something for your daughter. Chun smiled warmly and replied, That is very kind of you. Please come in. Lily opened the gift and found a beautiful crystal that glowed with soft colors. Her eyes went wide with wonder, and she hugged the alien without any hesitation. Sitcher was surprised by the contact. But after a moment, she carefully hugged the child back. Thank you, Lily said happily. It is so pretty. Will you be my friend? The Calorian looked at Ambassador Chun with moisture in her many eyes and replied, I would like that very much, little one. After she left, Chun looked at the picture Lily had been drawing. It showed humans and aliens of all shapes and sizes holding hands under a smiling yellow sun. There were no weapons or warships or angry faces, just people being kind to each other. He framed the picture and hung it on his office wall where everyone could see it. This, he thought, is what we fight for. Not revenge or power or pride, but the hope that one day all children will be safe somewhere far away. On a small planet monitored by human observers, Commander Violeth began her new life. She was angry and bitter and full of hate, but the humans around her just smiled and offered her breakfast. They were patient. They had all the time in the universe. One day, perhaps she would understand. Until then, the galaxy remembered what happened when someone hurt a human child. They remembered the quiet calm, the patient preparation, the overwhelming response, and they made very sure it never happened again.